Let's now talk to Spencer Pratt. Spencer, name may be familiar to you, even if you never saw the reality TV shows that he was in over the years. He is the one of the high-profile Palisades, just citizen warriors, going up against the Newsom administration, the Bass administration, the cover-ups going on in the fire department. He lost his home in the Palisades Fire, and he has been relentless since it happened, demanding to get truth and to get action out of all the state and local agencies who have failed all the people in the Palisades and in Altadena as well. Let's get Spencer Pratt on right now. Spencer, welcome.
Thank you. My mom's been listening to you my entire life, so I'm honored to be on her favorite radio show.
Oh, I apologize for that. A lot of that was probably against your will.
No. She's still your biggest supporter.
Oh, well, tell her I said hi, and I'm really flattered.
I will.
Spencer, you have I will give you a lot of credit because you are absolutely unrelenting. A lot of people get angry, for a day or two or a week. You have kept the torch going for 10 months now and just putting out real information and documents and videos. And we've been following all your social media all these months and gotten quite a lot of important information that you had that wasn't covered by the regular media in town. I guess
go ahead. They're in on the cover up, so it's that's why. So that's what I've learned is, even if they wanted to cover the stuff, they can't because, there's ad dollars. It's just, it's a conspiracy, so that it's really hard to get the truth out. And there are some journalists that are, do the best they can. And I don't want to, shame them all, but 100% across the board, this is, I keep saying, like the biggest cover up ever. And I mean, I also keep saying they burned down the wrong person's house. They burned down the wrong person's parents' house because I will do this for the rest of my life. And until every single person knows what truly went on here, I'm not stopping. So everyone keeps on thinking like, oh, maybe he'll burn out. No, they already burned me out. So now I'm going to burn down these lies.
Describe what you think the cover-up entails. I know that's a broad question, but it is a broad cover-up from Sacramento to Los Angeles and law enforcement agencies here, the fire department, the media. You're right on all those counts. I have exactly the same opinion. What you describe what you think the cover-up is here?
I mean, it started day one when right away you got Newsom lying in front of our burning town talking about I pre-deployed all these CAL FIRE when he didn't pre-deploy one thing to the Palisades leading into a red flag event. LAFD didn't pre-deploy one thing leading into it. So just from day one in front of burning buildings with people probably still burning alive in their houses, you have Newsom lying. You can't even get Karen Bass lying because she's busy in Africa deleting all her messages with her app. So you got the LADWP going backwards in their logs, trying to change, when they supposedly went to turn off the power. So, I mean, it started from the jump, and then they went on with the hurricane winds. There was no hurricane winds in the Pacific Palisades. The max winds were 30 miles per hour. So they connect the Altadena fire, which did have some serious winds, but it's a whole different fire. It was clearly Edison's electrical equipment. Yes, it was actually in State Park, which are state property, which people don't really talk about. So that's really also on Newsom. But I digress in that's a clear cut. And that's why people are always like, Spencer, why don't you talk about Altadena? The CEO of Edison, they already said this is them. They had 90-year-old equipment that, shot some sparks. So the difference is they did have the wind. They did have the electrical. We didn't have that. What we had was 2 empty reservoirs. I live next door to a reservoir, the Palisades Reservoir, not the Santa Ynez. The Palisades Reservoir was supposed to hold 6 million gallons. And when they decided they were going to drain the 116 million gallon when I say they, Janice Quinones, who makes $750,000 a year, and now also I think $250,000 in a security guard and a driver. And then you also look at all the LADWP staff; they're all making more than $500,000, which good for them, right? But the fact is that for $140,000, it took over a year to repair a rip cover on a reservoir that wasn't even built for drinking water. So that's even a bigger, who knows who got the kickbacks when they decided to rebuild this reservoir into alleged drinking water reservoir that no one's drinking out of. It was built for wildfire protection. It's quoted in the LA Times when the guy built it, why they did it was because there was the Mandeville fire back then. And they were like, we need another thing to fight wildfires. So they built that. So you got Janice Quinones knowingly leaving two of the biggest resources for wildfires empty in the Palisades. And then right away, the day after the cover-up starts, they go, oh, it wouldn't even matter. Oh, it was never designed for fighting structures past 3. What are they talking about? It mattered because the helicopters, if it wasn't designed for wildfire, why do they have the pumps that the helicopters connect to the reservoir? It's because that's what it's for. So these helicopters, for the first 6 hours of the Palisades Fire, they got to fly to Pepperdine. They got to fly to Encino. This is the most important time when a fire starts, is that initial attack to get the water on it. And they're having to spend 6.5 hours of the actual time in the air going to get the water. 30 seconds. We're talking Sandy Inez to Lockman in one of these Firehawks or whatever they call, would have taken 30 seconds. But no, they got to fly all the way to get the water. So you got back to the bigger picture. The cover-up started instantly. Hurricane winds. We had pre-deployed. We were ready for this. Oh, the water was never meant for fires. So, and then it's just, I mean, that's day 2. Now, we're 10 months later. You got the new Chief Moore the other day in the Fire Commission thing going, I don't know about any of these text messages and these reports. Excuse me, sir. You could have asked, because on Saturday, you went and shook hands with all the Station 69 guys in the Palisades. Why didn't you just ask them to their face? Or did you? Or did you go there to tell them to shut the F up and to stop, trying to tell the truth, because the truth doesn't look good for the fire family or whatever BS these politicians, because that's what you'll learn. All these upper brass firefighters, they're politicians. They're not the boots on the ground, the guys behind the hose. They operate at a different level. They're just doing literally what Karen Bass and what keeps the bonuses. So these guys are all in on it too. But then the real cover-up, the one that's like why we're on the phone today, because I feel like the LA Times, I'm glad they're even digging into this. They included me in a piece about the state parks and the Lockman fire. And I feel like some of the bigger pieces of that article were kind of missed. So for people who don't understand, what they've done in the cover-up is that first it was climate change. Oh, my gosh. New York Times is arguing me for 2 weeks. How do you not say this is climate change? Newsom says the wets are wetter, the dries are drier, blah, blah, blah. And then the ATF comes out with their federal investigation. No, now Newsom's, it's an arsonist. Oh, really? No, the arsonist was January 1st, and that was 8 acres. The Newsom Bass LAWP Palisades Fire, that's 25,000 acres. That's 6 days later. So you can't sit here and try to blame a guy who we don't, allegedly is the arsonist for the Palisades Fire. This is on Newsom, Bass, and the LADW.
All right. Let me just stop you for a second. We've got to do a commercial break and get some news. We come back. I want to talk more about the specific article in the LA Times that you referred to, okay?
Okay.
Spencer Pratt, he is the activist for the Pacific Palisades community. He lost his house and reality television star, so he's got a name, and he's using that name to attract an enormous amount of attention to everything that he just laid out. That all those cover-up bullet points that he went through, yeah, that was just day 1. John Kobylt Show, we continue with Spencer Pratt. The reality TV star has become the outspoken leader for Palisades residents who are fighting the massive cover-up and the massive incompetence that led to the fire and persists to this day, the cover-up and the incompetence. And Spencer, when we left, you were starting to address an article in the Los Angeles Times today, and this concerns something we have talked about this week. California State Parks sent a representative to the site of the original fire and apparently ordered LA Fire Department not to use a bulldozer to cut a line around the fire because that would harm a lot of the local plants that they felt were endangered. Talk about this.
Yeah, so like in this article, it's very he said, she said. Spencer said that California State Parks tried to restrict how firefighters spot the fire. And then she said they didn't. Well, no fact check, no conclusion. You don't have to wait for the state park's confession. You could actually research their state park policy documents, like the one that I have. I can send you the link, where in the job description of the CSP resource advisor, they're explicitly taught to minimize, in quotes, impacts to natural, cultural resources caused by wildland fire suppression. What does this mean? Well, obviously, by natural resources, they mean plants. Their stated intent is to reduce the amount of plants being cut by wildland firefighters. The writing on their policy is literally in bold font on the word suppression. They clearly see the standard work of wildland firefighters to be a significant problem. Can you reduce avoidable suppression impacts and still properly contain a fire? Sure, but a simple point of fact, the purpose of this is that it precludes the firefighters from just doing their job as they see fit, which, given the consequences, is preferable over the plant priority approach. So, like I was trying to tell them, the LAFD is going to do their best to put out a fire. But when they arrive on site, if there's a state representative telling them they can't have a dozer, and so that's kind of where the report mixed up. What I was told by the battalion chief wasn't about the mop-up. It was when they got there for the fire. So they conflate the initial attack and the fire line construction and the mop-up. They're not the same thing. The dozers are used for the line construction, not mop-up. So when the AREP, when they show up to tell the battalion chief who I spoke with, and they have a map of where there's a dozer exclusion zone, and this is during the initial attack on January 1st. So I don't know what the whole counterpoint in the article, someone says that dozers aren't used for mop-up. I was never saying that. And neither is Alexander Robertson, the lawyer. His quote is, they couldn't bring a bulldozer in to cut a line around the fire, and they could not do mop-up with their hand tools. He's specifically delineating between dozer line construction on the initial attack, mop-up with the hand tools, which was also restricted. So this whole thing about, like, in the article, it's like, oh, this guy says Spencer's wrong, a former thing, we wouldn't use dozers. It's actually in their own thing that they wouldn't use dozers because of what he's saying, that it's because of safety upgrades and power equipment, that area was halted for dozers because of their milk velch plant, and they were banned. So the article, it's like, thankfully they're even like talking about it, but it's just confusing the reader, like, because they bring in some retired LAFD guy that's like, oh, we would never use dozers. Oh, yeah? I never said they would use them on the mop-up. So that's where it's a little frustrating.
Well, but you do have to wonder now, I would think, that there'd be forces out there trying to discredit you in some way, even if they're nitpicking on on a mistake you didn't make.
Yeah, that's why I called in today, and because I wanted to come in studio and do a whole thing with you, and I want to fit the schedule. But then after this article, I was like, this is too big of a thing for like paragraphs to be kind of put in. I'm not saying it's just not the right order. So I will tell exactly what happened. So I got a DM from a firefighter that was on the Lockman mop-up on January 2nd, and he told me, a whole message. I posted it, and he said that he went up to the battalion chief, and he said, it's still smoldering. We can't pull hose. And the battalion chief looked at him, ignored him, and said, pulled the hose. And so when I heard that, I was like, I'm tracking down this battalion chief. So I got a hold of this battalion chief. And so, he in his defense, he doesn't believe that it was smoldering. You know, we obviously know he's wrong. There's lots of videos. So, but that wasn't the takeaway from our conversation. I said, because I was like, were there any state people there? Because I had heard that there was a state rep. And he said, yes, when we got to the fire, there was a woman from the state with a map, and she was showing all the areas we couldn't touch fighting the January 1st fire because of protected, endangered. He said his takeaway was he was shocked how much protected area was up there, and asked to keep the map, and she said no. And then she also said they couldn't bring a dozer up. So it's not a he said, she said. We're going to subpoena this guy, this battalion chief. He's going to have to talk under oath or face perjury, and he's going to say that they were told no dozer. So it's not about the mop-up. The dozer could have been there for that night for the initial fire. And think about the fire line that dozer would have created around the burn scar. So not the mop-up, the initial attack. And so we now know the state didn't use any of their – so people don't realize the state parks have their own fire trucks, their own fire – the whole team is like, I want to say there's at least 11 of these trucks from Malibu to Palisades. So Newsom's lawyers are denying that the state, there was anybody from the state even there, even though now we got photos of video of the state rep walking the burn scar with LAFD firefighters. So they're lying in court as of like 2 days ago. So I don't know if they knew we had the video photo evidence.
Yeah, but they were definitely lying. Spencer, can you stay on for another segment? I got a longer segment coming up.
Yeah.
You got time? Okay. Just do a news break here. Spencer Pratt is with us going through the details of all the cover-ups involving the Palisades Fire. Follow us at John Kobylt Radio on social media, and you can subscribe to our YouTube video channel, which is new, youtube.com/@JohnKobyltShow. Subscribe. youtube.com/@JohnKobylt Show, and reporting more video clips, not just the short ones that you get on Instagram, but full segments and longer than that. Right now, we're talking to Spencer Pratt, the most outspoken resident of the Palisades. He lost his home, and the former reality TV star has been absolutely relentless going after the Newsom administration, the Bass administration, the LA Fire Department, and everybody, every agency, every official involved in the lack of preparation, the lack of response, the cover-up, the whole thing. And I got to say, Spencer, you just going through a list of the cover-ups from the first day or two that's a long list. I mean, we were just talking about it here in the studio. You forget all this stuff because there have been so many angles to this story covered up, and now it's 10 months old, and it's really good to go back to the beginning and remind everybody the lies that were told and the cover-up that has been going on. Do you get any blowback from anybody in government about what you're doing? Anybody try to intimidate you to shut up?
I mean, who knows? I'm so locked in, and they couldn't even dream of it. I think the only people that I ever, trolls that'll pop up now, since Newsom's best thing that he's done since destroying the state is focusing on like just yelling about Trump. So now the people that don't like Trump think that if I'm just attacking Newsom, they don't have any connection to why I'm attacking Newsom for what he's done to my town and a lot of California. So that's the only thing, and that's newer since he started doing the whole, look over here. Don't look at actually I'm the worst person for the last 21 years. So other than that, no. And people got to realize I do this because I interact with, 80-year-old like grandparents crying because they can't go back, and 90 I interact with these people who lost everything. So, there's they can push back all they want. There's nothing stopping what's behind me. So what's just so crazy is people don't realize, like, we talk about the Palisades Fire, but this is going to come, I hate to say it, but it's coming to the Hollywood Hills. It's coming to Bel Air. It's coming to, this is just my areas that I know. I can't imagine out past what I know in my just radar. But the fact that post Palisades Fire, they're still not doing the prescribed burns. They're still not clearing the dead brush. They're still not doing the fire breaks. it's scary that they truly have learned nothing from the Palisades Fire and 12 people burning alive 7,000 structures. And it's all Newsom. People don't realize that it's not climate change. 7 of the 10 worst wildfires in the history of California are during Newsom's reign, his era. So the climate didn't just decide, why Newsom's in charge, I'm going to make so many more fires and burn everything. No, he just doesn't know how to properly manage his state parks. And that's why the Palisades Fire is going to be such an important message to, our government, is they're on the hook for this. This is their property that they let just smolder for 6 days, didn't monitor it, they didn't need thermal. Let's say everyone's like, we should have, the new chief's like, we're going to definitely use thermal drones now that we've learned our lesson. You didn't need thermal drones. I know 4 firefighters that reached out to the upper command and said, hey, it's smoldering. It's red. There's smoke coming off of it, leading into a red flag. It's not about technology. It's about people's negligence. So forget even the LAFD. You can look at it as once they put it out and they said publicly they thought it was dead out, it becomes the state's responsibility. It's in their own manual to close the state park and make sure it's not a dangerous condition for the community or what's next to it. So their argument in court the other day was because of the Vetter precedent of this legal case. They're like, Vetter, state park doesn't have massive amounts of gasoline sitting around. So either they're the biggest liars or the worst attorneys that don't even know how to read their own Instagram accounts. Like I posted one day ago, Cal Fire has a whole post and they're referring to vegetation management as fuels reduction. So what the lawyers for Newsom state attorneys don't get, you don't need gasoline. The entire state park was fuel. It was 40, 60 years of dead brush just piling up next to people's houses. And here's the best part. They go around giving tickets, telling us on our properties to clear our yards. They got the new Zone 0 law they want to create where you don't have any of these plants, which I'm not saying that's bad or whatever. I'm just saying in the own community, you get fined for not clearing your dead brush, yet they have it connected to everyone's houses, just 40 years of just thick dead brush, which their own manual says that they're supposed to be clearing 130 feet of this dead brush connecting to all of our houses. So, the bigger picture, I'm excited for the future because I do think when all's said and done, and this is, Newsom goes down for this, California won't keep burning down because they're going to learn a hard, expensive lesson. They should have already learned it with people burning alive and, 50 billion plus in people's properties, but they don't because they actually don't care about any of us, which is
no, they don't. Well, let me ask you something. What's the state of the rebuild?
And that's the other funniest thing. So you got Karen Bass bragging. It's not funny. Dark humor, excuse me. Karen Bass out here bragging with posts. I just did an executive order to cut all the fees for rebuilding, knowing damn well that her executive order means nothing, and she needs a super majority vote from the city council to even approve waiving the fees, which they have not waived. So out of 7,000 plus structures, there's arguments about what the number is, but we're talking 300 maybe houses are being rebuilt, and they're bragging about one house just finished. That house was already in the works before the fire. A lot of these properties they count, and a lot of these permits they brag about, it's if you're adding a pool now, you have to get a new permit approved. So we're talking 300 max out of 7,000. So there's and it's impossible. People are dealing with it now. They're fighting the LADWP who won't underground the power lines, even though we have evidence of these power lines creating new fires on January 7th and January 8th with these poles going down. So they're fighting to not underground the power lines, and they're trying to charge everyone. So it's just it's disaster after disaster. And then they do little photos and IGs with little music, and they're like, record rebuilding. We're doing the fastest ever. Also, fastest ever in Los Angeles is the slowest anywhere on planet Earth. So you can't even reference fast in LA this is 3 times what it usually takes. Well, it shouldn't have taken that and anywhere else. It's just like, for instance, Senator Rick Scott, when he was out here for the congressional hearing, he told me in Florida with the hurricanes, if they're not already rebuilding and houses aren't up within 3 months of a hurricane, he said the pitchforks come out. But here we are 10 months later. And, the other thing people just don't even talk about is everyone got destroyed with insurance because of Gavin Newsom and his Ricardo Lara, who's out there on 50 vacations on safari with 30,000 in bodyguards. I don't even know nobody even knew what this guy looked like, yet he had 30,000 in bodyguards. So he's traveling around the world while we're all getting cooked by the insurance companies because, of course, they don't want to insure these, as they would say, extreme fire zones. They're extreme fire zones because anyone with a brain knows that Newsom doesn't maintain his state parks and lets these environmentalists that he puts in charge so that he can be like, oh, that's not me, that's CARB. Well, who elected the CARB freaking person? You. Why don't you do an executive order and get rid of these people and say, we're trimming the dead brush? And they're fighting for things that where is the milk velch? It's all gone. Where's
Spencer,
the protected butterfly? They're all gone. Where are the lizards? They're all dead.
I thank you for coming on. I'm out of time, but I really enjoyed this, and I want you to come on again, all right? Because this is going to go on for a long time. And whenever you got, I'm glad. I think a lot of people listening have been captivated and probably understand this at an even deeper level. And as you find things out, you've always got a home here. All right. You got great reach on social media, and we got pretty good reach here on the radio. And I think we could do a good job spreading the word. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Keep it up. You're the only IG post I like to share. I'm like, somebody with a brain still left in the zip code.
All right. Thanks, Spencer. We'll talk again soon.
Dang it. Okay, bye.
Spencer Pratt and the Palisades Fire. Deborah Mark, live, KFI 24-hour news.